sometimes I sit with my clients and I feel like I am hoarding the goodness of the world because they have so much insight and depth that they're afraid to share elsewhere. And so I learn something every single moment that I'm with them. And so, in really, discovering what Lisa's professional skills have developed into outside of just knowing her as a human, it was like, wow, we can do something with this. Like, we can really do something with this.
Hi, everyone. This is Ego Project, and I am Lisa Heidle, and I am here with
Cristine Seidell.
And we are here with Lisa Thrower and Connie Worthy of Subtle Arts. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you so much for having us.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to read their bios real quick. I'm going to start with you, Lisa. Can you go ahead and raise your hand there for the people watching on YouTube? There you go. And then we're going to do Connie, and then we're going to jump in and learn what subtle arts is. Okay, so Lisa Thrower. So since 1999, Lisa Thrower has lived in the Metro Atlanta area, working as a museum administrator, project manager, professional assistant, and art consultant. She has a degree in art history and a background in collections and archival management that allow her to understand overarching visual themes and intuitively sort out all things into collections. Because her passions and professional life have always intertwined, she has developed meaningful connections with a variety of creatives, artists, designers, writers, and foodies. These are the folks who inspire her on a daily basis. In 2021, Lisa completed 100+ hours of yoga and yin yoga teacher training, and is now a yin yoga and meditation facilitator in the Atlanta area and other locations. All right, that's wonderful, Lisa. Anything you want to add to that?
Nope, that's pretty much it. I'm still working as an art consultant, but this is my passion through subtle arts, is more on the yoga side.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, and Connie Worthy. Okay, Connie Worthy is a licensed mental health counselor. Connie graduated with a degree in English language and literature, then embarked on a career in sales and marketing. While this career path was financially lucrative and taught her to connect deeply with others, it was painfully unfulfilling. Okay, I get that. And she experienced a profound sense of purposelessness for many years. This personal crisis led her to therapy, where she had an awakening. She felt safe and comfortable to finally meet and truly be herself. She began to release self-doubt and to focus her attention less on becoming the person she thought she was supposed to be, and more on embracing the person that she had always been. She made the decision to become a counselor and approaches counseling with a trauma-informed perspective and the fundamental belief that we are all whole individuals, each of us unique, equally deserving of love, understanding, and compassion. Oh, that's lovely. Oh, it is. That's good, isn't it? Oh, Connie, anything you want to add to that?
No, that's great. If there's anything else, I'm sure it'll come up.
Okay. Okay. All right, so we're going to jump right in. I'm going to let you two, Lisa and Connie, tell us what is subtle arts.
Connie, do you want to talk about how it began, and then I can talk about how we're applying it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Lisa and I have been best friends since 7th grade, and for my 40th birthday, we took a trip together to Asheville, saw a musician that we love, and just had the most incredible weekend. Just, everything was, there was nature, there was yoga, there was, all of the elements to really, connect ourselves back to ourselves, each other, and to the world. And it was this really interesting conversation on the drive back, because while we've known each other for ages, we haven't worked together since 7th or 8th grade. Right?
At the math table, right?
Yeah. Oh, science projects. That was our gift. And so, I was on my phone. I had gotten a couple of emails about new client requests, and I was responding back about, just the general, like, thanks so much for reaching out, blah, blah, blah. I have a wait list, all this stuff. And it just occurred to me, I was like, I need I just need a website to direct people there, to give them the information. So I'm not texting out, the same thing all the time. Would a different person have something organized and be able to screenshot it? Yes. Am I that person? No. And that will also come up in the ego work part. But so, I was telling Lisa, I just wish I had this thing. And she's like, well, I can do that. And I'm like, you can? She's like, yeah, I can build you a website. And I was like, okay. And then, it was just like all these other things. I'm like, this would be cool. And she's like, I can do that. And I'm like, okay. And, so then just, through the conversation on the ride back, we just started talking about like, okay, so if we have this platform, what can we do with it? How can we bring all of these practices that we've developed, experienced, helped others with, needed to other people outside of just my clinical space? Because I feel like it is this really magical room where so much happens. And it's hard, to leave that just in the confidential environment. Obviously, everyone's information should remain confidential, but sometimes I sit with my clients and I feel like I am hoarding the goodness of the world because they have so much insight and depth that they're afraid to share elsewhere. And so I learn something every single moment that I'm with them. And so, in really, discovering what Lisa's professional skills have developed into outside of just knowing her as a human, it was like, wow, we can do something with this. Like, we can really do something with this. And so there we go.
Yeah, so I think I left the conversation thinking, cool, I'll get to do another website because I'd done one and was excited about it. And then I think Connie, you called me on Monday or Tuesday after, and you said, no, I don't want it to just be a scheduler. I want it to be us together, that we're going to do this together. And it was such a permission and such a great opportunity for me to do something of my own choosing with Connie, knowing that we had this like synergistic energy, and the things that I would want to share, she would be supportive of. And that I could help her expand that reach beyond the four corners of her office and have it be something that was timeless and feel like a breath of fresh air. So Subtle Arts is a space in terms of it being a website. The website I consider to be a repository of all the good things that we found, Connie and I both, along our way, including therapeutic practices, which Connie uses, like grounding techniques and meditations and things like that. But examples of just great universal poetry and art that is beautiful and breathtaking, especially when paired with a thought from Connie about how it plays into what's going on in our collective consciousness. Like, and this was COVID, Connie was our trip 2021. So summer of 2021, people needed this. People were craving it. And I think Connie said something that we needed. I needed this as much as anyone. And I'll leave it with that. Leave it on that note.
Wow.
Yeah,
Very
thank you. Cristine and I are also in a collaboration. I'm a creative, she's a therapist. And so seeing the two of you working, together and collaborating together, it kind of reinforces what Cristine and I are trying to do as well. That marriage of personal healing growth and creativity. They work so well together, right? You need both in order to thrive. So I think what you're doing with Subtle Arts is so beautiful. Your website is lovely. It's full of resources. That playlist, okay, chef's kiss, and I hate myself for even saying that phrase, but it's so beautiful. I love that playlist. It's so good, and there's so many resources. So everyone, that will be in our description box, so definitely go check out their website. It's you're going to get something. You're going to walk away feeling better about life after being on that website. So what are your thoughts, Cristine, about what they're doing for their collaboration?
Well, I mean, I don't think that there could be a better description of what our hero journey should be than for the coming together of the awareness and the resonance of work and wounding, and the bringing in of the creative space and encouragement to explore creativity. Even, and often people are like, oh, well, but I'm not creative. And I'm like, you just recognizing the beauty of art, or connecting to poetry, or immersing yourself in nature. That is the call back to the intuitive, right? So the intuitive is the one that has all of the wisdom for us that will ever need to be. So to pull a space of therapeutic understanding and attunement and attendance, with the support of bringing in the creative to be a place to process. I mean, golden. I really like Lisa said.
Thank you.
know,
That means so much.
Yeah. I think it's, it fills that heart center, because it really is a space where I think people receive. And we're so afraid to do that in this world. We feel like we have to just show up and give and be achieve. And so for you guys to have a space to fully show up and receive, and then have the guidance of the art and the creative, I think I'm really excited to hear more about it. So thank you for showing up to do it. And I don't think it's a coincidence that it happened during the great withdrawal, right, of the world, because that's where we start hearing the whispers, is in the withdrawal. So thank goodness for that space for you guys.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's an important point. Like, people don't have those moments to pause. And that's the great thing that COVID might have given us. And I call it the great pause, or I know some people say the greater interruption or whatever, but for me, it was a great pause where I really leaned into all the technology. I went to artist talks and museums that had never put out a virtual offering before, but they did it to give something. You couldn't visit these, places of cultural and importance, but you could receive something from the people that work there that, believe in the importance of stewarding that art and culture out to people that are at home, maybe for the first time. They're used to being in their cubicles and their situation, whatever they find themselves in. And Connie and I did talk a lot about how I wanted to do something for the cubicle people, for lack of a better word, that if they are sitting at their laptop, they can go on subtlearts.com and just have a moment to look at something, and maybe it strikes something, because all of it is intended to be super universal. But it's also intended, as Cristine, I want to go back to what you're saying, is the receiving is like, it's always been by design to be a gift. There's no monetary, exchange in visiting our website or our active Instagram account. It's here and it's now, and it's for anyone, anytime.
Well, and even removing the barrier, I think for some people, that even, whatever the barrier is, whether it's time or resources, or even just, proximity to places that actually have art, when we think about different populations that don't have a creative outlet within their community, to just offer it at the end of a web address, I think is, yes, that is something that I think COVID brought up. But for those that are continuing to have a mission in that, I think is powerful for people that it resonates with.
Well, and one of the things that was so important and special about it, and still is to me, is that, I think we all have the modalities that we're comfortable with, right? Some people love therapy. I clearly am one of them, right? That's why I do this, but some people are like, I love yoga, I would never go to therapy. And some people are like, I love therapy, I would never go to yoga. Some people say art speaks to me, but not this. And so I think there's some fear in that, there's some short-sightedness in that, but there's also some lack of exposure in that. And so it was really important that, we pulled from different arenas to then expose people to things maybe they hadn't thought about before.
Right.
And, giving people who are, diehard artists,
Yeah.
Why about yoga in a way that's like subtle, right? Like it's
Mhm.
kind of just like it's not in your face. It's not a, you know, you need to do this thing, but it's like, hey, while you're looking at this that you're really comfortable with, can you also get a taste of this? Like, what does this do for you? What could this do for you? So that was a really big piece.
Yeah. Awesome.
I love the collaborative aspect of this because collaboration built into it is both a giving and a receiving, and it's cyclic. It's constant movement when we collaborate with others, and I find it a very spiritual experience full of growth and insight and learning about myself, seeing my own wounding and fears. How has the collaboration shown itself in your friendship? And what have you learned about each other and yourselves?
Connie.
Well, so I have learned that I'm very different than I was in middle school. And I've learned how easy it is to fall back into the idea of what you thought you were supposed to be, right? You know, in grade school, I was always a great student. I was organized. I was dedicated. I was determined, you know, I mean, it was by the book, right? And, you know, some of my work has allowed me to release some of that and to lean into more flexibility. And so, you know, as that has worked really well in my therapy practice of I show up and I will be there for you. Wherever you take me, I will ride with you. We will go together. I will make sure you get through safely. Doesn't matter, right? But that is in contrast to who I grew up thinking I was, this very organized planner. And so in joining this collaboration, it was really fascinating and humbling to see like, oh, wait, I'm not that person that I thought I was back then. And having to acknowledge that healing wounds has changed me in a really beautiful way, but it's also maybe I'm not as much of a planner, right? Maybe I'm not as organized as I once was. And so, you know, I had to separate out my expectation of myself from what I thought Lisa expected of me. And that was really challenging, you know, because yeah, I mean, it's just so funny how I think, you know, science was my wheelhouse, right? Lisa, and I think we only really had science together. Like that was where I thrived, and it was methodical, right? Like that is a place that it made sense. And so, you know, entering this project, I thought, you know, Lisa would be the one that was like creative and just kind of out there. And I'd be like, all right, let's stay on task. And that is not at all at all how it translates now. And so, yeah, it's just, you know, as you shape and evolve, you change, and you have to, I think when we are put back in familiar circumstances, whether it's like long-term friendships or family, it's so easy to fall back into the role that we were in, and realizing, okay, maybe that's not me anymore, and maybe that's okay. So yeah, I mean, it's been humbling, it's been exciting, it's been liberating. Yeah, it's been a lot of things. A lot of things.
Well, that's beautifully said. What about you, Lisa? What have you learned in this collaboration?
So I think I've had to take a look at my particular gifts and how they might be alienating to others. I'll explain that in a second, but it's funny. It's just so funny. And anybody watching this that's known Connie and I for a long time, it's like, yeah, I got an F in environmental science because I wouldn't take the tests. I just drew big pictures of giraffes on he used to give us the paper that you covered the textbooks in to do our test because he was trying to save paper. And so it was this big, beautiful sheet of paper, and I just drew whatever I wanted on there. Anyway, I failed the class. So, you know, Connie, you know, thinking of me as more of a free spirit, and I still have that in me. I have grown through my professional life into being that organized kind of archivist collections manager, like keeping everything, project managing, you know. But as an archetype and as part of my, you know, strength and background, I mean, I've been labeled through personal inquiry practices as being a connoisseur. I have a curatorial mind. I am a visual person. I am a visual communicator. So I have these high expectations for what things are that are aesthetic. So when that comes to collaborating with someone else, my aesthetic is not necessarily Connie's aesthetic, and hers is not necessarily mine. I mean, I think there is some universal beauty that everybody can agree, like that's just a really beautiful poem, or gosh, that piece of art is just transcendental to look at. But like trying to get Connie's ideas from her along with images that resonate from her, and then me having this particular aesthetic, like subtle arts came to me in meditation, the word came to me in meditation, and then everything that I personally like to surround myself has that kind of I don't know how to describe it other than it has sort of a weight, but it also feels ethereal. That's my personal aesthetic. And because as the creative director of subtle arts, I'm supposed to set the tone becomes mine a little bit. So having to manage like me wanting it to look a certain way because this is my art. I thought of this in my head and I'm making it out in the world as a reality, that thereby makes it a piece of art for me. Is it making sure it represented Connie, and also like having to tell her some things that maybe I didn't want to present through to our audience because it didn't fit my aesthetic. So that's ego. You know, that's me like having to keep a tight control on it. And like, you know, I met with somebody once that called it your blanket. So the 9 images you can see in a grid on Instagram, just starting there as a point of conversation, I was obsessed with like, does it work? Does it match? Not in an obsessive way, but that was very important to me. Like when you go on the Instagram, when you go on the website, it all is supposed to feel like it belongs together. Is that super important? I don't know. I'm working on that. And Connie and I have had many conversations about it, and trying just not to come off as that connoisseur that's in me to being judgmental and evaluating, when that's such a huge part of my job, is to say whether or not this visual is successful or not. Does this work? You know, is this beautiful? It's a hard line to toe.
And I think a lot of that, you know, is grappling with, is this a conditioning of of me believing things need or should be a certain way, which, you know, anytime we have that should, need, you know, like there's a little bit of our conditioning, a little bit of our woundedness that's like, rather than really attuning to what it is, right? There's a little bit of that, but there's also, I think, a little bit of our giftedness that maybe we can tap into how we feel about something sooner than maybe somebody who has to marinate on it a little bit longer, you know, and that's something I've experienced, you know, Lisa and I work together and we talk about emotionals and non-emotionals, right? And oftentimes non-emotionals will sit and have to marinate a little bit longer on, how do I really feel about that? I'm not sure. I'm not as in tune to my feelings because I'm really in tune to other people's feelings. And then some people are gifted to be able to be very in tune with their feelings and be like, I'm clear that that's a no. And so sometimes I think for that giftedness, you are grappling with a little bit of that. Am I clear on my feelings, or am I coming from the way I feel like things should be? And then the non-emotional is like, I'm not clear on how I feel. So am I over functioning or people pleasing to go along with something? And I think that can be how collaboration sometimes can get wonky. But the fact that you guys bring awareness to that, like, I have to be careful. Am I coming from an authentic place, or am I coming from a, you know, conditioned place? And I think oftentimes when we look at, you know, collaborations out in the real world that are kind of like, you want to do this, you want to do this, cool. And we slap it together. That's where you see a lot of the headbutting, because disagreements occur in collaboration. It's gonna happen. It's how do you acknowledge yourself and then the other person within that disagreement.
Yeah. And I think, to be totally fair, I think we've had more uncomfortable conversations since we started this project than maybe we ever did before. But through that and moving through that together, I think we have a deeper understanding of each other too. And I think that's very true in life. It's if it's all pleasant, it's probably not very deep and
Probably not real.
right.
Yeah.
And so it's hard, but I think that's a really big part of who you choose to collaborate with. It's not the person that you're always going to agree with, because if that's true, you probably just do your own thing by yourself. You probably don't even need the other person.
Right. Yeah.
But it's, who can you continue to have those hard conversations and continue to show up with love and respect for and with.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a fear that people have when they collaborate, especially with someone, whether it's a family member or a friend or, someone that they've worked with in the past, that it's going to like damage the relationship. And we hear that all the time, like, oh, if you want to lose a friend, open a business with them, that type of thing, or start doing
about that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And, and I do think what you said so beautifully, Connie, was it's about love and respect. You have to see the person and you have to be available to them where they are. Does that make it like you can't expect someone to, always be where you're at, and Cristine and I, as an example, we're both very, we're racehorses. You can't give us an idea and not open the chute, right? You have to let us run. And I know for me, a lot of my work has been being understanding and patient about where she's at, growing her own business separate from the ego project, and being able to, have the expectations that are reasonable, because I have a very different lifestyle, than she does. And so being able to take a step back and say, okay, I can only control me, and this is the direction I want to go with this. This is the work I'm doing through it. And then allowing her and trusting her that she's keeping pace in the way that she can. So what do you think, Cristine? Has that been some work you've done?
Yeah. And I think that, having regular conversations about things too, instead of letting anything marinate, is also extremely important. And then recognizing what conversations can we settle in just like our everyday, like, let's just talk it out, we'll hash it out, and we'll probably come to an agreement eventually. Or how do we settle any kind of disagreement that maybe we're kind of like, I don't know, like sometimes it's okay to have a solution, like, what, if we ever get to this point, let's just flip a coin and let's just both agree that whatever that coin lands on, we're willing to choose our collaboration over whatever it is in that moment. Because most of the times on the other side of that big feeling, we can find some acceptance of, oh, I can see how that would work. And maybe we can do this on the, to add to it. So really kind of checking yourself around, ultimately, are we going to choose this over needing to be in control or needing to be, it to be our way? Because there are times that I think we do get very convinced that our way is the right way, but do we hold it in the weight of, is it worth damaging something to hold that?
Yeah. Well, and Lisa, you mentioned that with your creativity, once again, this is your creative outlet. This is your wheelhouse, right? This is where you feel the most comfortable. And earlier you mentioned that you were kind of struggling a little bit. Was it with your creativity when you started Subtle Arts? And can you talk a little about your process there?
Absolutely. As I said, I, toiled away doing other people's projects for my entire career. And ironically, a week before the kids were sent home, is what we say here in the suburbs. The kids were sent home. I have sent in a resignation to my job, which we had like 29 active projects at one time. It was just kind of crazy. And then everything kind of came to a halt because it was hospitality. And I had that time I was waiting for a change. The world gave me that change. I didn't know really what my creative voice was, because I had been working under people that everything I did, everything that I created, or all my output was credited to something bigger or someone else other than me.
Mm-hmm.
I was just kind of the creative brain here. So and managing other people's social media accounts, you're speaking through someone else's voice. So I was like always thinking creatively and writing copy and choosing imagery and suggesting art for experiences and places I'm never going to go to. And then I decided, like, what are the things that I am interested in? And, I've always been gravitating towards, like, what's the most depressing movie possible? What's the most like sad book? What's the most heartbreakingly beautiful song? I have that heaviness, like I mentioned, and without it feeling sad or dark, it's like that gives it the gravity that makes it universal. And I hope that, as I continue to do some work that I'm doing through the Artist's Way, which Connie encouraged me to do, and I'm doing again after 20 something years. It's a 12-week program. I'm like identifying elements in my past that affected my creative self-worth. And the fact that no one's expecting anything from subtle arts. Neither Connie or I even. There's no strategic plan. There's no goal, right? It's allowed me to pair my writing and my yogic practices, my interest in meditation, with beautiful art, talking to artists that create in a mindful and intuitive way. I'm just trying to find what I want to do. I've taken up ceramics. I'm doing Tai Chi. I mean, I'm giving myself all this freedom, and then the things that I feel like are super just land with me, and things that I know Connie has, then that's what I want to put out. If it helped me have a pause, if it helped me realize something about myself, if it helped me feel better, I want to pass that on some way. And then I package it, make it visual, hopefully make it beautiful, and send it out, and hopefully without too much sadness.
I think it's so meaningful that in your aesthetic you're looking for a little bit of that sorrow and a little bit of that pain, like intuitively that calls you.
It's balance. It has to have that balance too. Even if it's a super uplifting piece, it might have some element of like duality.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's something as a culture we struggle with, sitting with pieces, or even like as therapists, Connie, sitting with expressing those really heavy things without trying to jump out of it too fast, because we are conditioned to be like, okay, so let's honor that sad part or that grieving part, and then let's find the light in it, right? And I think that just really does a disservice to the fact that, pain and suffering exists, but the beauty is not that right around the corner we have good vibes, and, we're just moving out of it to get to good, but that on the other side of it is the wisdom,
Always the wisdom. Yes.
And wisdom is beautiful. And it is like meant for us, not that it necessarily feels good.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a message that is very, very lost in kind of our secular world. Feel sad, but just see the positive, the sadness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's cool that that's called you,
100% agree with everything you said.
Yeah. Well, and something I really love about offering that is, so for lack of better words, like shedding light on the duality of life, right? And so it's interesting because, so I've been in a practice about a little over 10 years now, and one of the things that I really focused on for a long time that came up so much with clients was, all right, like sit with that feeling, like that bad feeling, like let's let it move through you, right? Like sit with it, experience it, recognize that it is not bigger than you. Recognize it is temporary, and being able to guide someone through that bell curve, right? Of, this is where, I wouldn't say equilibrium, but this is tamp down, this is like what feels comfortable, and bringing up that emotion to then, get them to the peak where it releases. And, that, like that place where it comes up and bubbles up and it comes out. And, that's such a huge thing of, so, there is, in subtle arts, there is this beauty and there is this light and there is this joy, but it's also transposed with the reality that none of that matters if you don't acknowledge the darker sides, right? But something that's been fascinating to me is that, in the recent years, I found that as many people that need to be guided to sit with the bad or the dark, there are that many people that are at least as uncomfortable sitting with the good. And so, because what we offer has the full range of emotion and life and depth to it, we can call in those people that are looking for the good and, expose them to the reality of the dark, but also those people that are drawn to the darkness, we can expose them to the light too. And, help people see that you don't have to be, and you can't be, you shouldn't be on one side of anything, right? It's the full range of emotion, the full depth of experience. And so that's been really cool to help cultivate and share.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and I think people look at art as it's a leisure activity. It's something that you do, when you have an extra hour, you maybe do some painting, and I see art as it's part of the human experience, and bringing it in as part of your tapestry of your life, it allows you to express in a way that maybe you can't verbally. It allows you to bring beauty into form, whether it's a light or dark image or a light or dark prose or poetry, whatever your medium is, and being able to use art to share yourself with the world in a way that maybe you can't in other realms. So I love the idea that it may be subtle, right, but it's still real and it's still concrete. So thank you both for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. So as far as creativity and collaboration and what you're doing, what piece of advice would you offer others who maybe they have a friend that like, I would love to do something with that friend, or, a family member? What piece of advice would each one of you offer them before they get started?
Connie, I can go if you.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to share a tool that Connie and I use and have used. I mean, all these conversations, I think I need to highlight that Connie lives in our hometown, but I'm up here in Atlanta, which is like the saddest thing in the world, but that we're apart. But in order to collaborate with somebody, whether it be long distance or not, you have to take the time to ask questions about why, with anything of merit and with purpose, you have to ask why you're doing it. And instead of the immediate questions of how do we do this and how do we divide it, all that practical stuff, because our core of what the reason why we're doing subtle arts, why we're putting out anything at all, for no, just out of the goodness or passion of our hearts. You have to get really clear on that that's serving you and each other. In terms of dividing and conquering, leaning into your gifts. Connie and I can go so much farther together than we could separately. She's helping clients as many as she can in a week, and I've got gads and gads of pieces of art that it's just in my mind. If I don't share the poems, like, it's just for me, it feels selfish. But the tool that we use in being long distance is, and I wrote a blog post about this, if you go way back.
We are not sponsored, but we're open to it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes, that's right. Back, if you scroll down to the beginning of a couple of years ago, I made a post about empathic listening. And so I think what's essential in Connie and I's relationship is when we get together, we're very excited, and we usually just socialize when we're in person, which I think is beautiful. But when we're apart, we have to work through things without having time to sit across from each other. However, the gift in that is, when you are with somebody you really, really like, you really, really love, and you're so happy to see and be around, you talk over each other. You talk excitedly, you're interrupting each other. Nobody means to do it, but it's just something that happens. Empathic listening is listening to the entirety of what somebody has to say before you click into your answering mode or your response mode, or you're self-identifying. Oh yeah, me. So the app that we use is called Marco Polo, and it's simply a volleying back and forth of a short video. Well, could be short, Connie, or it might be an hour.
Like, just popping on real quick, and you're like,
yeah.
oh my.
Oh yeah, you're like, yeah, this is just a quick message, and then an hour later. You can stop that app, and you can send notes, and you can send things while someone's speaking, and you can watch them live while they're talking. But the way that it's most beneficially used, I think, is that you come to your phone. You're like, I need to exchange with Connie. I need to exchange with Lisa. You go to that when you have the time for it. It's not like Connie sends me a text that's like 15 paragraphs long. We all have one friend at least that does that. It's that you come to it when you're ready to have this intentional moment of thinking about your friend, thinking about the things that you're working on together. And then you don't have to answer right then. You can answer when you have the space. And what I like about it is it gives me, I might not always respond to everything that Connie says, or questions or points that come up in the conversation from her side. But what I do respond to is what sticks with me after I've listened to her in her entire moment of speaking on what she's talking about. So I would say that empathic listening in any relationship is super important. And I just love that I can talk to Connie while I'm driving in the car, or like had a stream of consciousness, like this really weird thing happened to me after the chiropractor today, whatever it is. Connie's there when she can be there, and then she'll respond back to me when she can. So it's a respect of time. That is a yogic principle, and I can't remember which one, but that it's non-stealing of each other's time.
Yeah. And energy.
And energy.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's called Marco Polo, you said?
Marco Polo. Yep.
Okay, well, I'll find that and put that in the description box.
Yes, and we'll put our blog post.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
and they're welcome.
Thank you.
They're welcome to sponsor us.
I mean, I'm here for it. Right?
I'm here. All good.
We're not telling you this because we're sponsored, but we're still.
That's right.
And what about you, Connie? What advice would you offer?
So I don't know that this is something that everyone can do, right? And so I'm not trying to minimize the ability to do this, but I think one of the most important questions a person can ask is when they sit down and they think about the person they're going to work with, do they feel safe? Do they feel like they can show up authentically no matter what? Do they feel like they can trust their person to show up authentically with them? And I think that's one of those things that it's not a like in your mind, does the paperwork support that you're safe with this person? It's like on a cellular level, does your gut feel safe? Because if so, I think you can conquer anything. I think you can move through anything. you can disagree, you can agree, you can have all of these conversations that are so necessary in a true collaboration, and you can come out stronger. Even when you disagree, you both still feel respected. And I think that ultimately, I think that's the foundation. And I think you can build anything on it, but it's really hard to build anything without it.
Yeah.
That was beautifully put. Thank you. And that's so true. If you don't have that security and safety with the person across from you that you have to depend on and rely on, then you're not going to build. It's going to, at some point, collapse. Yeah.
And you're not giving it your true gift.
Thank you both. Give me a minute on that one. I feel that. Thank you. Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and sign off. You are both amazing. We would love to have you back in the future. If there's any events that you have in the future, any other topics you want to explore, both together as Subtle Arts and separately as well, you are always welcome, Lisa and Connie. We would love to have you back.
Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure.
Love the conversation.
Cristine, do you have any final words?
No, and I just appreciate you guys coming to this space. And, I think what a lot of people don't realize unless they've participated in a partnership or a collaboration is that, you really are almost like a marriage, and what you've created is your baby. And so just like, a committed partnership or marriage, it's, you have to ask yourself, can I be vulnerable with this person? Can I show up in the ways that, help with healthy communication? And then do I ultimately trust this person to be and hold the same values that I have? And so I think that you guys have shown that you guys were able to take something from seventh grade, and that you just intuitively were like, hey, you're kind of like one of my people here, and grow it into truly what a very committed relationship is and what it requires to be, long-term. So I appreciate you guys bringing that and being a testament that it can be done, where other CPAs and lawyers will be like, don't do it.
Don't work with your friends.
Yeah. Yes. But you guys are quite a testament to showing up to the space that does allow it to be done, and to be done well.
Well, it's so cliche, but I also, if you love what you do, then maybe it doesn't feel like work. So.
Right. Exactly.
Thank you guys so much.
Guys,
Thank you. We will have all of the information, both for Connie and Lisa and Subtle Arts, in our description. We will also link to the blog post talking about the Marco Polo. Thank you for that reminder, Lisa. And once again, join us again. We would love to have you back. What a wonderful conversation.
So much to talk about.
Yeah.
Right.
It is two therapists.
I know. You guys are a diagonal here for me, and I'm like, oh. The aesthetic works.
Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. And join us next time. Make sure to subscribe, follow us on YouTube, follow us where you listen to your podcasts, and on Instagram. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.